Hey everyone, welcome to the 7th edition of Establishment Exiles. My name is Mike Figueredo, and I am here with our panel today. We've got Ashley Hudson.
Hey guys.
Also with us is Kevin Asani.
What up, bitches?
Wow, that's new, Kevin. Bringing the fire in 20.
I'm excited to be back.
And with us today is our very special guest, Sahil Habibi, who you all know from the Progressive Voice on YouTube.
All right, how's it going, guys?
How's it going, Sahil? Your channel is blowing up. You just passed a huge milestone, 10,000, which is gigantic. That's huge. So congratulations. And I think that your channel is one that I keep coming back to because you cover all of the things that we all want to know about with regard to right wings. So we don't have to watch like Ben Shapiro to know all the stupid things that he's saying because you cover that for us.
Yeah, you're right. I try to do some videos on those because I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't really talk about, or there's not many responses going to those people. So especially recently, I've made a bunch of responses to some of the stuff that, you know, people like Ben Shapiro will say, or Steven Crowder, or other people like that. And I think that there are definitely people who enjoy those. And, you know, I'll get a lot of comments saying like, you know, it's really awesome to finally see someone, you know, challenging what they're saying and different things like that. So I do try to incorporate that as much as I can.
Yeah, that's great because like for me, I never really know what they're saying because I don't pay attention to them. But at the same time, their audiences are becoming so huge that we really do have to start holding them more accountable. And I think you're really the first person to step up and do that in a really substantial way, where if they say something really weird, then you'll post a video about it. So I think that one video that struck me was Ben Shapiro talking about atheism, how you can't prove God doesn't exist, like basically saying that you can't, admitting that he thinks we should be able to prove a negative or something like that. Maybe you could fill us in on that one.
Yeah, so that's actually something that's a very common thing that's said, and not just among people who are, you know, pundits or someone who's an apologist for religion, but it's just something that's constantly said. But again, you know, the idea of saying that it's just a very commonly debunked point of saying that you can't prove atheism because atheism is the lack of a belief in God. So you can't prove a negative. And, you know, it's like saying, prove that I didn't fly to your house and left. It's something you can't do. It's impossible.
Right.
And the burden of proof lies upon the person who is trying to assert something. And the people who are making the assertion are the people who are saying this religion is true. And I'm saying that they don't exist. So you have the burden of proof lies upon you.
Right. No, that's exactly it. And I have to remind everyone, Sahil, you're only 17, right?
Yeah.
So by the time, by the time Sahil is my age, you're gonna have like a bajillion subscribers. It's crazy.
Dude, I'm 30. I'm 31 years old, bro. I'm an old motherfucker compared to.
Oh, you're 31, Kevin? I thought that I was older than you because I'm 30.
I'm
okay.
also
We're close then. We're close.
How old are you, Ashley?
I'm also 30.
So Sahil is here with a bunch of old farts, and he's showing us something in the first 5 minutes. Thanks, Sahil.
Yeah, no problem.
Making us look
fun being around you guys.
So, as you all know today, by the time everyone sees this, they'll know that the previous day, you know, the government shutdown ended after just 3 days. And hang on one sec. I think there's an echo coming from someone. I can kind of hear myself, but okay, I don't hear it anymore. Okay, so basically, there's a government shutdown that ended after 3 days. Now, I was anticipating that this would go on for potentially weeks, and it ended pretty quickly. And as you all know, this is because, guess what happened? Democrats
Caved.
they really made me believe that they were going to fight for a second, because they were trotting out all of the signs. You know, this is the Trump shutdown. You had Chuck Schumer basically saying back in 2017 that we're going to nail them. You know, we're going to hold them accountable. I'm actually excited about this opportunity. And here they are. Just it took them 3 days. I mean, the last time there was a government shutdown in 2013, I believe it lasted for 13 days. And we didn't even make it to day 3. And even basically on the first day of the shutdown, you had Democrats giving us signs that they were going to cave. You saw the tweet now from Dick Durbin basically saying we agreed to go along with the border wall. We have Chuck Schumer admitting, yeah, we tried to go along with Trump's border wall and he rejected it. So, I mean, they were already showing signs that they were willing to cave, but it's not surprising that they caved. But for me, I was still surprised that they caved this quickly. I thought that they would have held on stronger for Dreamers at least maybe like a week. But I was wrong. Are you guys surprised that they caved this soon, or surprised at all? What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, I wasn't really sure who to blame at first. I mean, immediately it seemed like Republicans. However, something I thought was interesting, and it's not necessarily indicative of anything, but something I thought was interesting was, you know, the anniversary of Trump's inauguration was also the day of the shutdown, which is also the day of the Women's March.
Yeah, that's
I mean, and maybe it's just me, but something seems a little possibly orchestrated there, or maybe not. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I think both parties were just kind of posturing, to be honest. I think, and I don't know, maybe they were trying to take the focus off something else. I guess I am a little surprised that they caved this early. I figured they would let it go on for a while because, you know, what better than to create? Yeah.
You know, there was a great point that Cenk Uygur made on I think it was one of his segments that he was talking about before the weekend, obviously, and he was talking about how a lot of the donors for the Democrats are unions, and the unions work. The people that are in unions work government jobs. So when they're working government jobs, they obviously need to, they need to be able to work. And if the government is shut down, you can't work. So he said that it's possible that a lot of the Democratic donors or Democrats are caving to their donors and what they want to do. So all the union type donors.
Yeah, so I'm actually not surprised at all that they caved, and it's kind of because we already know what the Democrats do, and it's kind of their thing almost. Yep. They constantly are caving, and I was honestly a bit surprised that it even lasted this long. And as you guys are probably know, my understanding was they even gave Trump what he wanted in terms of his defense funding as well as the border wall funding.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, it's not that I'm surprised it even lasted this long, to be honest, because the Democrats don't really put up much of a fight, and they didn't really fight for Dreamers much, but no. I definitely didn't expect them to. And I think that politically it puts the situation in a very interesting situation, because I think the scope of who to blame becomes really important politically. But the polls showed that people would blame Republicans in Congress as well as Trump. So, I kind of go back and forth on this one.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate point, though, because blame is basically a huge part of the discussion when you look at the media. They're talking about blame when you're looking at basically anyone talking on the Senate floor, be it Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer. They're talking about who to blame. And I think that, for me personally, I think that this undoubtedly it lies on the Republicans to blame, because, first of all, think about the 2013 shutdown. Why did that shutdown occur? Well, basically, it was because the Republicans were being unreasonable. They wanted Obamacare to not fund Obamacare, or they wanted Obama to not fund Obamacare.
Yeah,
that's completely unreasonable. This was something that was passed, that was going into law, so of course it was going to be funded. So that was unreasonable, and the government shutdown then was completely unnecessary. But now we have a situation where Republicans don't even have enough Republicans to approve of their budget. So knowing that, you're going to have to come to the table with Democrats and say, look, I understand that, we need to actually just fund the government for more than a couple of months this time, maybe pass the annual budget, because that's what you're supposed to do if you run the government. And they had to basically listen to what Democrats want when it comes to funding. You're talking about the budget. So Democrats basically said, hey, look, I know Trump, he got rid of DACA and said that we need a legislative fix. So let's do that. Let's reauthorize CHIP, which they did get today. But and they also said we want disaster relief funds for Puerto Rico. That is reasonable. That's part of a respectable realm of discussion when you're talking about a budget. And even when they basically Trump said, well, if you want DACA, I got to have my wall. Yes, that's negotiation, that's compromise. But Democrats allowed Donald Trump funding for his wall after he promised that Mexico would pay for it. So they gave in to Republicans, and the government still shut down. So, yeah. I mean, I can't see how anyone could possibly blame Democrats for this. The only thing I'm blaming them for is not being strong enough. You had them back into a corner. Just last year, Donald Trump said, if I've got to shut down the government to get that wall, we're going to do it. You have Donald Trump blabbing in 2013 about how the president is to blame if the government shuts down. Back then, it was Obama, of course. So I I don't understand how you could possibly back them into a corner and then step away from the situation. It makes no sense to me.
I don't know. I personally, speaking for myself, I can't stand this blame game stuff. Oh, he did it and he did that before him, and then he was doing that before. Like, I don't give a shit about that stuff. Like, just focus. Like, this is the thing with the Democrats. They need to be willing to put their necks on the line for us. So, for the people. Stop with this, like, oh, Trump did this at this time, and then we did this to answer. Like, that's all like posturing. That's all grandstanding to get a certain advantage over that other party so that you can use that at another time, so as a political advantage. But as we know with the Democrats, being the geniuses they are with their 3D chess and all this shit, in reality, they're actually playing checkers, and they're losing very badly because they don't know how to play the game. They don't know when to use their political power. Obama was notoriously horrible at that.
Yeah.
Look at Obamacare. I mean, look at all the things regarding, as far as, FISA and, like all the spying and the illegal drone strikes and stuff. He did this all to make Republicans happy. He wanted to appease them so that it's like, look, we're dropping Democratic bombs. It's okay. We're all, Republican bombs are really bad, but I'm doing it the right way that will make you happy while my, supporters still support me, basically.
Yeah, I think that the point about the blame game is interesting because at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit who is to blame, even though I just went on this whole long spiel about how I think it's the Democrats. I mean, like, the government has to be funded. That's something that's non-negotiable. If we don't fund the government, we end up getting down this path where we could default on our debt. That would be a catastrophe. I mean, that's not something that we all want to worry about. And we shouldn't have to worry every couple of months if that's going to happen. If we're going to default on our debts, if the government's going to shut down, we shouldn't have to worry about this. Just pass a fucking budget for a year and then get along with it, then negotiate everything. I don't know. It's a really frustrating situation because defunction, like the way that the government doesn't function properly, has become the norm. So typically dysfunction of any kind is abnormal, but it's normal for our government with how frequently we see this type of shenanigans just continue. It's annoying. And I like how
with the debt ceiling too, by the way. Remember the debt ceiling fights they keep having?
Yes, yeah.
Same exact thing. It's no different.
Yeah, it's a discussion that's never going to end. We're never going to have the right policy discussions. It's just we can't even pass budgets. So they're playing. They think that they're playing 5D chess or 4D chess, whatever the saying is. If you read the article from Ezra Klein in Vox, he talked about how the Democratic Party, actually is a good thing. They didn't really cave at all because they got chip, and now when they go back 3 weeks later to negotiate, that's off the table. It's like, okay, but we still are in the same thing where we're kicking the bucket down the line, and a couple weeks later we have to have the same fucking discussion again. It's like, can we not just once and for all pass a budget annually? This wasn't an issue before. But then you have hyper-partisanship, and then you have people on both sides that are unreasonable. But at this point, it's always Republicans who are the ones who are unreasonable, where you give them what they want. Yeah, you give them what they want.
Yeah, there is no doubt Republicans are at fault for this. It's their hypocrisy knows no bounds. We all know that. But it's kind of a matter of, like, just stop with the games, though. Just, like, make your point, stand up for the dreamers, put your neck out on the line. I know Doug Jones's pussy ass is worried about, I'm not gonna look good to my, right-wing supporters here, these white people, but then again, he went out there and bragged about how all these, African-American voters voted for him, voters voted for him. And, now you're going to go and talk about how, it's really dangerous if I'm going to support, dreamers and kids that lived, that were born in this country, but had to be sent to Mexico for no reason, basically. So
also, he really, in his campaign, he talked a decent amount about the CHIP program. That was his compromise, in my opinion, for the people who wanted Medicare for all and whatnot.
I want to know how it's going over there, Ashley, with all this talk about the government shutdown. What do the people in Alabama think?
I mean, it's kind of the usual of the things I've said before, you know. I mean, yeah, to some extent, you know, they are right about some things, you know, the hashtag Trump shutdown and things like that. But it's the same thing. I mean, honestly, I haven't really seen a whole lot about it. And what I do see about it is just parroted, you know, from like CNN and MSNBC. To be honest, I haven't seen nearly as much as I would have expected. If I'm being honest, I still keep seeing comments and posts about the shithole comment. We're still hung up on that.
That was like 3 years ago. What the fuck?
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I wish I could give you a better answer than that. But I haven't seen a whole lot in that regard.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought up the shithole comment, because I wanted to ask Sahil about that as well. I don't know if you covered it on your show. Okay, so I think that we're all progressive, so we would agree that the shithole comment was completely unacceptable. I think there's no doubt that it was racist. Do you think that the media is focusing too much on this, Sahil, personally?
Yeah, so I would say that there are things like the shithole comment. I think that should get enough of media coverage to where we are going after that, and I think that it is wrong. But again, I think that it's probably not really a good way to go after Trump, because anybody who really is still a Trump supporter at this point isn't really going to be swayed by, you know, he basically called African countries shithole countries, and he didn't want people coming from there. But there's a lot of other stuff that Trump is doing. You know, I remember that he was halting the cost sharing subsidies, which would basically make insurance companies get out of the exchange and essentially destroy Obamacare. And things like that don't really get as much coverage as comments that he makes, like, you know, calling African American countries shithole countries. But it should get some coverage, but I think that we should focus on other things that are more important.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's basically superficial. It's something that you can attack him on that's easy. You don't have to do any real in-depth policy analysis for it. You just, you know, you pretend to be outraged, and then that's that. But I mean, really, one thing that I can't understand how the media wasn't obsessing over, because I was really frustrated over this, was the vote to give Donald Trump basically unlimited spying powers. They expanded his ability to spy on Americans and violate the Fourth Amendment. And Democrats went along with this. Actually, Doug Jones went along with this. I mean,
55 of them. Yeah. And Doug Jones is one of them.
Yeah.
The resistance is strong.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw an Onion article. It talked about how it was from the position of Nancy Pelosi. It was a fake quote from her about how now that we really have to stop Donald Trump's authoritarian tendencies now that we gave him more power to be authoritarian, or something like that. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect, because this is what, okay, I don't know who wrote the article, so I can't credit this individual.
I don't think it's an article. I think it's just a headline with a picture.
No, no, you're right. This is a different.
I tried to look for the article. I couldn't find it. Oh, okay, go ahead.
No. I was going to say about resisting. Kind of getting back to the government shutdown. About how if there's any time, maybe it was in Slate. If there's any time to resist, what better time to resist Donald Trump, the Republicans, during a government shutdown, when you back them into a corner and you have the American people on your side? I mean, the overwhelming majority of Americans want to protect Dreamers, and they backed away from it. So I mean, we have to just take a moment here and have a moment of silence, maybe, for the resistance, because it's dead. What resistance is there at this point? I mean, there's no resistance.
It's all symbolic. It's all symbolic, and it's meant for like, it's almost like meant as like a invisible person that you have to imagine is standing there, you know, blocking Trump's way. Like, it's almost like Neo from the Matrix, you know. He's just holding up his hand, and like you need to be like resisting all the stuff that's coming at that person. Like, it's just not that whoever is leading the resistance, there is no leader of the resistance, but they keep pretending like there is a resistance with this whole women's march thing. I know Ashley wanted to talk about that, but this women's march thing, like, okay, like it's great, that's awesome, but I mean, what are you doing though? You're just marching. But what are you marching for?
You know what
exactly.
Well, before we get to the Women's March, I want to say, first of all, the resistance in general, anyone who purports to be from the hashtag resistance, they remind me of a Chihuahua. Like, if anyone has ever had a Chihuahua, basically the main characteristic is that they have a really big mouth. They bark at everything, but at the end of the day, you know, they're scared because, okay, so for example, my mom has a Chihuahua. He's very tiny and he barks at all the other dogs, but the minute they run up to him and like try to check him, he cowers in fear. That's kind of the resistance. That's the way that I visualize them. And before we get to the Women's March, this is kind of something that I've been wanting to ask people more and more during interviews. So I asked Sahil first, what would you grade the resistance? You know, if you could grade them F through A, what would be your grade? Would they pass or fail?
So I would probably give them maybe about a D.
I was going to say that I'd give them a D too.
And that not being an F just because we were able to so far stop them from repealing Obamacare. But other than that, really, that's pretty much it. And I thought that you brought up a good example of them giving Trump more power to unconstitutionally spy on Americans. But otherwise, you know, the tax bill was passed through, and so they weren't even able to. They weren't really able to stop that. So I would have given them a D. I would have gave them an F if if the repeal of Obamacare did pass. But because that wasn't passed, I guess I'll have to give them a D.
Yeah, well, the individual mandate was repealed through the tax plan, but in general they did. Yeah, you're right. I think they did do a good job at stopping the numerous bills. I mean, I don't even know how many was there, like 6 different Obamacare repeal bills where they just would have completely repealed and replaced it with some other horrible plan. Yeah. So that is a good point, to be fair, to bring up, that they did do an adequate job there. But I know that Ashley wanted to talk about the Women's March, but before we get to that, because I know Ashley wants to be critical, I'll say first of all that I'm someone who I try to be optimistic and look at the glass half full. Well, I can't say that because I'm a hypocrite, because sometimes it's half full, half empty. It just depends on my mood. But in general, when I see mass protests like this, it really does give me a good feeling. Just to see people getting out and marching, you know, and getting involved, it shows me that they're paying attention. I hope that this lasts after Donald Trump is out of the White House. But what do you have to say about the Women's March, Ashley? Ashley, sorry. That's it. If I'm mad at you, I'll call you Ashley. But no.
There you go. So I was gonna go back for a second, but since we're on the Women's March now, because I did have another thing to say about.
Feel free.
Do you mind if I jump back for a second? Actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was actually just wanting to point out something when I mentioned the whole shithole comment thing. So something that was interesting, and this is, I guess, I can relate this a little bit to what you were just saying about how people are awake and they're out there and they're paying attention, and they're even if they're, you know, screaming at the sky, they're screaming, I guess. So yeah, I agree with that to some degree. But so just to kind of comment on that, on literally the day that the shithole comment happened. So an article, at least it surfaced, it came out, I believe it was an Intercept article, that UN-backed police force actually massacred hundreds of innocent people in that same shithole country, which was Haiti. But I didn't see anybody posting anything about that. There was no outrage about anything along those lines. That same day, also, we found out that Medicaid was going to be ripped from people, the sick and the poor, unless, you know, they work for it, the whole work requirements thing. The same day, Walmart shut down, you know, thousands of stores, leaving all these struggling people, you know, jobless. That was also the same day that 55 fucking Democrats voted to pass FICA and increase Trump's surveillance powers. Also, now this didn't come out the same day, but I did see this article the same day, so it was floating around. Also, the UN had admitted to not releasing cholera in Haiti, which apparently killed 10,000 people. Also, the same day, we learned about the hospital patient left out in the freezing cold. I'm sure you all know about that. It's, I don't know if you've all been paying attention, but the flu is one of the worst in decades. It's killing more people. It's killing a lot of people. It's really deadly. And so that's kind of everywhere. Also, the same day that happened, a company connected to Betsy DeVos, or DeVos, however you say her name, was selected by the Department of Education to collect overdue student loans. It's called Performant Financial Corporation. I believe that was the name of it. But she had invested in it right before it becoming secretary. So I'm sure there are plenty of other things I'm missing. I just wanted to make a point here to kind of juxtapose this. We're freaking out and only talking about this shithole comment, but we're not. But nothing else. None of the things that matter are actually making. Well, at least on my feeds, my Twitter and Facebook, they're not making it. I'm not seeing anybody post it. They're not outraged about it. People want to be outraged about things that, I don't know, just are only slightly uncomfortable for them, because the other things that you should be outraged about are too uncomfortable. They hit you too hard or too deeply. You know, you don't want to think about the UN like being responsible for just massacring hundreds of innocent people, or anything else. You know, the Medicaid being ripped from people that can't work. It's just I don't really know how to describe it. It's just really it's really upsetting to me. And when I commented on that, some people just countered me literally with just, well, but we should talk about the comment because it's racist and it's vile. And I said, no, I agree. It is. You're missing the point. Like, I'm agreeing with you. It is those things. But like, literally, that is all you're talking about and nothing else. And nobody could respond to me when I would say things like that. It's just, so sorry. I wanted to backtrack a little bit.
No, that's a great point. No, we absolutely have a substance deficit in this country, in the mainstream media, not just in the mainstream media, even though they kind of facilitate these debates. But I mean, like they set the stage for what's important in American politics. And then that kind of trickles down to just everyday discussions you see on Facebook where people are focused on shithole this, shithole that. Yeah. It's like, okay, you're not talking about everything that Ashley, brought up. But that's such a phenomenal point.
Can I just make a point though, as also regarding, because I know Ashley's referring to the people on Twitter, so basically kind of like the regular people out there that are mad about the shithole thing. There's also politicians like Cory Booker and Kamala Harris pissed off about it, and they're talking about it during committee hearings, and they're yelling at who was it? I think the
I don't know her name. I can't think of it right now.
I don't know her name. I think it's the Health and Human Services Secretary for Trump. I think the blonde lady, and they were they were both yelling at her, saying like, "Oh, how do you not remember that terrible comment that Trump made? I don't believe you." Blah blah. So basically, they were scolding her for these horrible comments they were making, and I just posted on my social media and stuff saying, I wish you were this angry about the FISA bill, and I wish you were this mad about Saudi Arabia bombing the shit out of Yemen and all these 8 different countries that we're bombing right now. Like, why aren't you mad about that stuff? Why aren't you getting outraged? You're just getting outraged about a bunch of words. That's all it is.
Well, and speaking of these really important issues, one thing that has been kind of bothering me lately is I just read an article. I think it was from Haaretz. I think it's an Israeli news outlet. Is it HAA? I know I'm butchering it.
It's a liberal outlet,
yeah. They reported that 97% of the water supply in Gaza is contaminated. 97%.
Yes, I saw that, and that the people that live there, they have to buy their water from just like private companies for I don't know, like multiple times what it's worth, at like 6 or 7 or more times. It's hugely inflated prices.
And Israel has a blockade over all the supplies that were going into Gaza at one point, and then they're just like, no food, water. Now that you mentioned that water, I'm sure they're blockading that as well. So. I mean, they don't let anything into Gaza. Like, people are starving,
It's similar to the Saudi blockade in Yemen.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't get medical supplies to treat cholera. It's so much more important than what Donald Trump says. Exponentially so.
Yeah.
Yeah, really right. Exactly. Sorry. And kind of, I don't know if you... Well, I'll let you have any more comments on that before I move on.
No, feel free. I'm good anyways. I don't know if anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, so the reason also I kind of led with that is because it kind of touches on a little bit my comments about the Women's March. It's like, so I've had my friends here criticize me before when I have become upset that people focus their priorities on these seemingly seemingly minor things, at least relative to the really big things we just mentioned. Because I would suggest that some causes are more important than others, and that we should focus our energy on those, because we only have so much of it. And they would say, well, we could focus on all these different causes, and I'm trying to kind of lead into, so with the Women's March, the thing that is frustrating. So last year when it happened, I didn't go. But I was like, all right, this is generally okay. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a corporate aftertaste to it, but it's all right. But I'm seeing it get worse and worse, at least from my perspective. So if you think about what they're doing, what are they actually? What are the women actually marching against? It's or against. And did you hear what I just said? What are they marching against? Oh. I didn't even mean to do that. But yeah, first of all, would they even be marching right now? Like if
Hillary was president?
Yes. And actually, speaking of that, there were signs. I saw this sign everywhere in all these different signs. It was actually, I think, Mike, you mentioned it once. It was either in one of your shows or in one of our podcasts. But I've seen this sign everywhere now. Again, the whole, if Hillary won, we'd be to brunch right now. Right. Yeah, I'm seeing it resurface, and it's everywhere. Ugh. And I was like, how privileged do you have to be to? I mean, because first of all, it's if Hillary won, you wouldn't even be out here marching. You wouldn't be out here marching. Because in that, to me, that just says you're not marching for something. You're marching against something. You can't actually march for any principles. You have to have a villain. You have to have a rival, and that's not how movement should be defined. And admittedly, I'm taking some words from a friend here that just said something that I really agreed with. But she said that a movement should be defined by its principles, not its rivals. And I wholeheartedly agree. And because the thing about these movements is they're really dependent on one person. Like I said, that's the villain. And without the villain, their movement's meaningless. Like I said, would there be this movement? Would the Women's March even be a thing if Hillary won?
No.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I think no. I think no as well.
Because they would be like, oh, Hillary's in power. Everything is wonderful. No, women don't have to do anything to find anything.
Exactly. And what are they even trying to do? It's like they put all this time and money and resources. Yeah. We invest all into just, we hate Trump. I mean, I wish they would put even a quarter, a tenth, a fraction of that energy and time and money into, I don't know, Medicare for all marches, environmental, or climate change, legislation marches, things that actually have a tangible, objective.
I miss the days of like the Iraq war protests.
I mean, at least it was something.
Those were fucking awesome. Those were the days when people were standing up to like true power. They were standing up against the powerful, and like they were. And I remember the establishment was scared out of their mind. It was crazy.
Right. Because also, and that's a good point, Kevin, because they were actually fighting against a specific issue. It was a specific.
And this was an issue that people agreed on. Everybody was like, "Yes, the Iraq War. We got to kill the terrorists." But like the women are marching for. So let's say hypothetically, the women seems like they're fighting for the Me Too movement and against sexism, against sexual harassment. Everybody is against that. Is anybody like going out there and saying like, no, there's no sexual harassment happening. No, no women are being, treated unfairly. Everybody agrees with that. So that's why the march doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right. And when you ask some of the people that go to these or attend these, they don't, from what I've noticed, there's not really a good answer. Like there's not really a good consensus as to the objective of the march. Some people have said, oh, it's a spiritual thing. It's we come together and we stand against, sexism and racism and all the isms and, and it's like, okay, that's fine. But think about how much this has grown, about how much this has become, I don't know how else to put it. Just basically a corporate thing. It's not grassroots anymore. I mean, if you look at how it's put together, I mean, there's so many people that you see all the signs that are purchased. Like I'm not seeing nearly as many handmade signs either this year.
Well, I'm sure it's heavily funded by Soros. It has to be.
Well, it's becoming commercialized, is what it is.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you're making a really powerful point, and just ahead of criticism that we may receive because we're criticizing it. I think it is important because the point about basically only creating a movement around an enemy, that is a hollow movement. I mean, because enemies, they only exist for a limited amount of time. Donald Trump is only going to be in the White House for 4 years, 8 max, right? Probably 4, knock on wood, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
But, you know, once he goes away, then what? If Hillary would have won, like you guys said, I really don't think there would have been this big women's march, because a lot of neoliberals, and this is a straw man, I don't know for sure if this is their position, but this is how it seems to me at least. They feel as though women are equal so long as they break different barriers, right? So if Hillary would have shattered that last glass ceiling, then women would have been equal. But since they didn't, then women are still not equal. But even if Hillary did break the glass ceiling, that doesn't really capture the full struggle of the American woman. And I don't know what that entails fully because I'm not a woman. But when I think about the struggle that women have to deal with, I think about single mothers. You know, my sister was a single mother for a really long time. I think about issues like access to female health care, access to abortion in Republican states where they have one abortion clinic. That's unacceptable.
No.
That's completely unacceptable. It's basically banned. Abortion has been effectively banned in those states.
To be fair, women do they do address those issues, you know, a lot. A lot of the women that are, they're women's rights activists. So they're the legit activists. So I think like the Cecile Richards types who runs Planned Parenthood and stuff, you know, she's generally pretty good in that sense. And the women that are like going against like guns rights because a lot of their children, God forbid, but they were killed in the Newtown massacre and stuff. So a lot of those women are becoming activists. So the women seem, and I love the idea of women going out there and fighting against the establishment, fighting against, again, guns rights issues, like you said, women's reproductive rights. That's a great issue to go after. I totally agree with it. I mean, I'm not against it at all, and I've always, been in favor of that idea of feminism because I love that. I just don't think that Donald Trump should be made as the face of feminists to hate.
Yeah, he shouldn't be the catalyst for any type of activism, because the catalyst should be the issues themselves in general.
Issues based, exactly, not a person. An issue. Yes. Issue or issues should be based on that, not just this really boogeyman that we hate. Yeah, everybody hates. I mean, what is his approval now? Like 32% or something?
Yeah, he's not.
2/3 of the country, well, a third of the country likes him right now. That's horrible. I remember Bush took even longer to get that to that point. So it's like,
yeah, and actually, we should also clarify too that this doesn't, what we're talking about, like the more commercialized version of the Women's March, that doesn't represent the totality of women marching. I mean, there are people who are there because they truly believe. I know a lot of progressives that attended, but just generally speaking, I think that Ashley's making a good point. I know you were going to say something, Sahil. Sahil, go ahead.
Oh yeah, my bad. I was just going to say that the point I think that is pretty important is that the kind of commercialization, as it was put, for the Women's March is probably not really a good move because people really start to question what they're marching for, and there's not really much of an answer, and it's difficult to get an answer. And I think that a lot of those people become people who are just people who are neoliberals. And I know that Kevin brought up Planned Parenthood, and I thought that an interesting point about that was during the primary, the Democratic primary, Planned Parenthood actually supported Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, even though Bernie Sanders was better on those issues. So a lot of times we see these kind of movements, either they get hijacked or they're just being misled or whatever, however you'd like to put it. But
by the way, I don't want anybody to forget this. Also, that's a great point by Sahil. But remember that I think it was the Planned Parenthood Action Committee came out and said like, oh, Bernie doesn't care about our doesn't care about us having rights. He sees our things as our issues as identity politics, and he puts them aside. And they were coming up with all this shit about like he doesn't care about about the women's movement and the women's having.
Well, you know why that was, right? It was because Cecile Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, her daughter was working for Hillary Clinton's campaign. Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill would render Planned Parenthood useless. The services, which I don't necessarily, I think that's how they see it, to be clear. I don't necessarily think that Planned Parenthood would be useless, but they see Medicare for All as an existential threat to their existence, because if women have access to the services that Planned Parenthood provides everywhere, and it's more widely available, then that might kind of threaten their bottom line. So this was motivated actors. I mean, the same thing with the it was the Human Rights Campaign that endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, which was preposterous to me.
I think you and I spoke about that. You and I spoke about that, Mike. I remember when it happened.
Yeah.
I think, and I remember actually giving them like $10 or $20 when I was going to school back in San Francisco, and then a guy came up to me or a girl came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to donate some money to our thing?" And this was before the primary, so I was kind of like, all right, they must be doing something good, and I gave them a good chunk of change, and they go end up, like, do they even give a shit about human rights? How about the human rights of people in Iraq and Afghanistan who were basically killed by from the votes of Hillary Clinton, of course, many others too. But Hillary Clinton was the one who supported those wars. She supported wars in Yemen and Syria and Libya and all those other places. So it's like, I mean, she's not a human rights crusader. Right. So,
yeah, I think that what we're all kind of circling around is that these big organizations that are, they're just huge in Washington to the point where they're pretty much mainstream. The Human Rights Campaign, Planned Parenthood, like if they're involved, if they're behind something, I think it's not necessarily grassroots any longer. And what I really want to see in terms of the Women's March is I really do, like Ashley said, I want to see it just fully grassroots. Like, I want this to be for the people. I don't want it to be commercialized. I don't want to see Walmart selling, the pink hats. I want this to be a real, a movement that is fueled by anger. No, I don't know. I don't know if they're, I don't know if Walmart's selling the hats. I don't think they are. Okay. To be clear, I don't know where you can get those. But, just for example, like, I don't want this to be something that's taken over. Like, how, the Republicans talk about the war on Christmas when, all these stores, they put out Christmas decorations like from the beginning, and the holidays become so commercialized. I don't want politics to be commercialized like Christmas, for example. I want it to be authentic, because that's when it has that staying power,
Right. Yeah. And I, the thing is, I would like to see it, broken down into issues. And I will give to the credit of some smaller groups, I did notice there were some, less vocal, it wasn't their fault, but they just weren't given as much of a platform. There are less vocal groups within the Women's March this year. There were some Medicare for All people.
Yeah, like Roseanne Tomorrow.
There were some Indigenous rights people in there, and there were some, I can't remember all of them, but there were some other ones too that actually had more specific goals, which I applaud them for that. I think that's okay. I think that's good. But the thing that kills me is that, so like, and if we want to talk about women's issues, like, why don't we talk about poverty? I mean, literally, one of the factors that put you, at risk of being in, the lower socioeconomic status, literally is just being a woman. And yeah, it really is. And like, what is it? Okay, almost 31% of households headed by a single woman in 2012 were below the poverty line, which is 5 times the poverty rate for families headed by
Ashley, not to interrupt you, but that's such a good point. And also I want to bring up that if you cross that, if you talk about intersectionality and bring that into the mix, like women of color, it's even worse.
Yes, exactly. No, the consequences for women of color definitely have it even worse, which is saying a lot, because being below the poverty line, period, is really, really detrimental. I mean, people who live in poverty are more likely to, or I don't remember the exact amount, but they're more likely to live with, twice as likely to deal with diagnosable depression. They're more likely to die from various diseases due to lack of healthcare, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, asthma, obesity. Smoking, who is more prevalent among people, adults in poverty. Women is one of them, and it's just, if you think about it, like, yeah, these are human issues, but also, and even possibly more so, if we want to make it a women's issue for the Women's March, I think that would be a fabulous thing to do. Like, I don't know why we don't. I mean, there was a Women's March in Montgomery, Alabama. I didn't go to it. But one of the things that I think would be great if they marched for, and now granted, like I said, I wasn't there, so I didn't see all the signs or all the groups that were there. But so Alabama has about like 900,000 people in poverty, and 300,000 of them are children, like, and we're the fourth, it might be third now, I can't remember, poorest state in the country. Like, why can't we march for that? I mean, we also have the fourth highest infant mortality rate, and also for mothers, we have a higher mortality rate for mothers too. It's why don't we? I just don't understand. Like, these are women's issues, they're human issues, and for our state, this is specific. Like, why don't we march for things like that, where real lives are literally on the line? I mean, yes, sexual assault is important. I'm not trying to minimize that, and I'm all about marching for that. But I just wish that people would give more attention to the things that are literally killing people in large numbers.
Yeah, I think that what you're bringing up is really important, because the first important step to building a movement is, I think, getting everyone's attention. And certainly everyone knew that the Women's March took place. It was covered by the mainstream media, and they never talk about protests. So we have their attention. So now I think that molding it to make it more effective is really important. And I think that part of what you're worried about, Ashley, not to speak for you, but is basically, you don't want the Women's March to be co-opted by neoliberals. You want it to actually be taken over by the people who were there, fighting for poverty and indigenous people's rights and whatnot, which I think is very important. And we want to make sure that the movement isn't fueled by hatred for Donald Trump, because there's no shortage of that. We all hate Donald Trump. Every one of us here, I think it's safe to say, we all loathe Donald Trump. Yeah. But with that being said, hating Donald Trump is not the antidote to defeating Donald Trump or getting someone even worse than Donald Trump, because I think that's certainly a possibility given how right-wing the Republican Party is. I don't know. So I think that this is a really good discussion. It's nuance, And
I think we should also remember that Trump loves to be hated, and his supporters love that we hate him, and they love the idea of us attacking him in these kind of resistance type ways, like the way the resist movement does it. They love that. Oh, like, I don't know, he's a golfer and he's a fat guy and he's got weird hair and stuff like they love when we go at where our side at least goes after him for those kind of things, instead of actually going after him on substance. So if we go after him for all of his Goldman Sachs nominees in his administration, if we go after him for doing warrantless wiretapping, drone striking the hell out of everybody, and all that stuff, like, they don't care about that stuff. To them,
it's not that they don't care. I would say that, like, they can't go after him for that because Democrats do the same thing. So they'd be hypocrites. Right.
That's the better way of putting it. But basically, we need to be making the argument. Us progressives need to be making the argument, and we are. We're doing our best to do it, but we're kind of outnumbered by the fact that the mainstream media likes to focus on shithole and I don't know, he's a racist and he's a sexist and he's a pussy grabber and all this other stuff. So that all that stuff overshadows the real substance of what's going on.
Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to say, if you think about how much energy, like you were talking about all this hate, how much energy we put into that, just hating Donald Trump. And I get it. Like you said, we know we hate him, but why can't we channel this into something actionable, into something good? If we actually channeled this hateful energy into pushing for real, tangible things, policies, just anything besides just "I hate you, you pussy grabber." Right. Like imagine what we could do. Like we would be so powerful if we could just do that. But I don't know if it's gonna happen.
What is it that the resistance people don't see bad about all these bombings by in Yemen and our obviously drone striking the hell out of different 8 different countries basically, or at least 5 different countries. The other ones were in wars, all-out wars, Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, why is it that they don't care about these issues? I know it's complicated. Like I think that's definitely part of it. The fact that these are those wars and stuff that we're involved in, they're very complicated issues to address. But what is it that they can't focus on that? Like, do they not care about the lives of of brown people?
I'd imagine that they would be inclined to care if they saw like a really good segment on it, in the media, if they covered it, if they watched documentaries on Frontline. I think it's multifaceted, right? Because part of it is, yes, the media is definitely to blame because the media sets the stage for what people think, are important issues. They can raise the salience of particular political issues. So if they talk about Yemen nonstop, Yemen's going to become an issue. I mean, Fox News proved this with Benghazi. They talked about Benghazi over and over and over, and suddenly everyone was talking about Benghazi, even though
it was fake. It was fucking fake. It was stupid.
It was completely fake outrage. That is what, even though I hate the word nothing burger, that was pretty much a nothing burger. It was unfortunate, but I mean, to suggest that there was criminal wrongdoing, it's preposterous. It's weird. But what was I going to say? God damn it. I was going to get on a really good point too. I forgot what I was going to say. Fucking resistance. I was going somewhere that was going to be so great, and it could have been the grand finale of this chat. Not to toot my own horn, no. But okay, I lost it, guys.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to talk about this Oprah stuff. I know Ashley wanted to talk about this whole Oprah thing. I know it's a very old news that happened now. A week ago.
Because I didn't actually get your guys' take on this, and I don't know what Sahil thinks about this too. Because
I
talked about it, but I'm excited about what you guys have to say about Oprah. Are we all for Oprah 2020? I know I'm going for it.
Yeah, Oprah and Biden, I guess, or Trump and Oprah, since he apparently said that he'd pick her as a running mate.
Yeah, that's right.
Just really quickly, if you guys don't mind, I just had one more thing. I'm literally, and I can't take credit for this, I literally saw this like in a graphic that someone else made, but I thought it was really descriptive. Just one more step back, a women's march. Someone made this picture of Debbie Wasserman Schultz with two women wearing the pink pussy hats next to her, and then they put the words over it. They said pink washing election fraud.
I think that's an old picture.
Pits feminists against democracy, and I was like, holy shit, that is brilliant. That's exactly what it is.
That reminds me of somebody took a selfie. It was the first women's march. I think it was on Snapchat with the captions, like basically she had a photo of herself with Debbie in the background. And she's like, Debbie's out here marching like she ain't responsible for this shit. Like, it was so fun.
I've seen that. Yes. No, you're exactly right. What were we? Were we moving on to Oprah? I'm sorry. I derailed. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
One more quick thing I have to say about that. And then I actually just wanted to mention too. So some people I know in New Hampshire are working with a congressional candidate, Mindy Messmer, I think that was her name. Anyway, she was supposed to speak at a women's march over there, and she got pulled from her speaking spot because her opponent just basically, just wants to win and wants to buy her seat and anything. But basically, the opponent ended up saying that if the progressive candidate wasn't pulled, that she would go to the press and like smear the event and everything. So basically, there was this big progressive pushback. Me and some other people were, they did more than I did. Were calling, sharing the story and links and whatnot. And it actually, I have an article link if you guys want to see it. But she actually got re-invited, and then she also got invited to another speaking event. And I just wanted to throw that out there. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, backtracking again. Okay, Oprah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So as far as Oprah goes, obviously, no. I'm sorry, like, if many of my friends get upset, like and they might, I don't know, but it's just, here's the thing. There's plenty of research. And I'm sure, I think, Mike, you've mentioned this, that wealthy office holders on both sides of the aisle, they generally don't support policies that help anybody except other wealthy people, So my thing is just like, why do we keep uplifting the wealthy? Why do we keep giving them even more power to make decisions about what's best for us? The lower and middle class folk. Like, why do we keep doing that? Like, I don't care if it's Oprah and she says nice things and she does nice things for people. She's not like, I'm sick of putting honestly, even millionaires, but especially billionaires up in these positions, they have enough power already.
It's like they just like anybody that it's like, like red balloon pops up and everybody sees it and like notices it and they point, they get distracted by it. That's how it is with Oprah. So all of a sudden Oprah is that red balloon that popped up out of nowhere and everybody wants to focus on that because she gave a really nice speech.
Kevin, if you would have said blue balloon, or I think it was blue balloons. Remember this is so random. I'm so sorry to sidetrack us, but
the convention, right?
Yes, of Hillary Clinton, where she got distracted.
Oh yeah, she's like that. Yeah,
and her face just like. I didn't do it justice, but yeah,
no, it's true. It's just I just don't really understand what people like. What do they don't even know her fucking platform. Do you know what she stands for? Like, okay, she stands for good things.
She stands for you get a car. You get a car. Get a car.
But how about you get Medicare for all? You get free education. How about that? Like,
I mean, if she wants to do that,
she's not gonna do that. She's not.
She's not.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know. We wouldn't know though. We'd have no idea.
She's not going to. She's not. There's no way.
I'm with Kevin on this.
I know Mike likes to look at
I'm not defending her. I'm saying we wouldn't know because she doesn't talk about politics.
No, I understand. No, but I know you like to look at the glass half empty, or I'm sorry, half full and stuff.
I do both, Kevin.
I'm not even half empty. I'm like 1/4 of the way empty. Like I'm totally pessimistic, and I don't have any trust in what I feel in this case is the establishment, celebrities, elites pushing for this kind of stuff, because these are the people, these are the same people that complained about, oh my God, Donald Trump is a celebrity and oh, come on, Donald Trump being president? No way, that can't happen. But all of a sudden now they want Trump. So, and I've heard many people coming on my social media saying, well, look, we have Trump, so why can't we get Oprah? It's a perfectly, normal, like they've normalized the idea of celebrities.
Yeah, and that's all we're talking about is The Rock. We're talking about Kid Rock.
Cuban.
I don't know if there's any other rocks that I'm missing, but Pet Rock, is that a thing? I don't know. But so I kind of want to get Sahil's take on, because a lot of the reason why progressives are outraged, and I'm not speaking for all progressives, but certainly myself anyways, is that Oprah would be someone that sucks all the air out of the room when it comes to media coverage, right? Everyone would be focused on her and they would not talk about Bernie Sanders. So let me ask you this, Sahil. What do you think about Bernie running in 2020? And do you think that Oprah would actually be problematic for his chances?
So I think Bernie Sanders' main problem in 2016 was, of course, the name recognition problem. And I think that wouldn't be a problem now. But again, I would say that he would be probably a shoo-in. I would say he would probably easily win, but Joe Biden may run. I'm not sure what would happen in that situation. But in terms of Oprah, I think that it's dangerous to kind of go into the zone of, hey, let's just have celebrities running for office. I think that that's pretty dangerous. But also, I think that kind of examining what people think about people like Oprah or Mark Zuckerberg is pretty important. And, I've asked different people, family members, who aren't super into politics, but they'll keep up with the news and know things. But, and I've asked them, and a lot of them are, like, yeah, sure, why not? Why wouldn't I support them? And it's kind of bad, I would say, because now we're basically just going off name recognition. And another problem with Oprah was, we don't really know what policy she supports, but I actually had seen some video of her, who she was basically like a fervent supporter of the Iraq War when they were about to go to war. And it was almost like there was someone who was trying to dissent in the audience, and she sort of, kind of cut him off.
Yeah.
And
oh shit.
It was pretty bad. So would she be a problem? Possibly. But something else that was interesting is that I came across a poll, a Quinnipiac poll, that had approval poll, and it asked what, had all the demographics written down and asked about approval for Oprah and Bernie Sanders. And Oprah actually had a lower net favorability than Bernie Sanders did with black people. So Bernie Sanders had 70 favorable and he had a 10% unfavorable, and Oprah had 70 as well, but she had a 15% unfavorable.
Oh, shit.
So, wow.
That's something that's interesting as well. So I'm not exactly sure what would pan out.
She's probably because she's more like a rich elitist type, Probably,
yeah.
I could see that.
All this talk about Oprah makes me miss the Mad TV skits of Oprah. I don't know if you guys remember those, but they were so great. I can't think of the name of the actress who played her, but she did such a good job. It was so funny.
I haven't seen Mad TV in so long.
No, I'm gonna have to go look up the clips on YouTube after this because that, yeah.
I did want to bring one more thing up. What do you guys think about Chelsea Manning running?
I'm really excited. I do really want to see policies. Like I looked for a platform and I couldn't find it, but we're kind of getting glimpses. Like she does support universal basic income and whatnot. So just by default, I'm supporting Chelsea Manning and I'm enthusiastic. I love that she's running. But I definitely do want her to release a platform, hopefully soon, because that would be easier for us to basically make that case and make the pitch for her. If we don't want to confirm that she's.
We don't want to be like the resistance and be like, just backing somebody because we know them. But I think the fact but the problem is she's already getting attacked big time by the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
They are just lambasting the shit out of her. And she has I think she just declared running this past week, I think. And
there's a lot of quote transphobia if we want to invoke identity politics like they do, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's tons of it. And a lot of them say, "Oh, is this a man or a woman? I can't tell." It's like stupid ass jokes, man. It's like right wing jokes essentially. And a lot of people they're saying she's linked with Russia, and then she's linked with WikiLeaks. So therefore, she's linked with Putin, and then she's linked with Trump, and then she was at she crashed a Mike Cernovich event. I think it was Saturday. And she was there protesting. Everybody's saying, "Oh no, she was there as a best friend of Cernovich and Cassandra. What the fuck her name is?
Fairbanks.
Yeah, Fairbanks. And she's really good friends with Cassandra Fairbanks. And really good friends with Mike Cernovich. So even though she was actually there protesting, but everybody's pushing this misinformation based on a BuzzFeed news article. And
I didn't even hear about this.
Yeah, it flew under the radar a little bit. I mean, I was busy that night, but I was following it. And it was just like BuzzFeed News came out with this stuff, and they were like, I don't know if they wrote an article, but they definitely had reporters that were there at the event, and then I think they were live tweeting. So they were live tweeting on their thing, and then they saw her, and then they said, "Yeah, she's here. That's really surprising." And then they automatically assumed that she was there as a supporter, when in reality she was actually outside or something because they kicked her out because she was protesting.
Okay, BuzzFeed has got to get their act together because they also were the ones that reported on a rumor that progressives were trying to purge women of color from the DNC a couple of months back. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, women of color, and wasn't there also, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember, it wasn't just women of color, but it was all these different progressive. Oh my god, I can't believe I can't think of it. But yes, that was what was trying to happen, I believe.
Yeah, but BuzzFeed is just. I mean,
although
it's like the Daily Beast, basically. I mean, honestly,
they're BuzzFeed. They're every once in a while they'll have a brilliant geopolitical analysis. I remember back in 2014, I read this long article on the Russia-Ukrainian situation right after they annexed Crimea, and I was like, that was really impressive. That was thorough. This author did their research. I can't remember the name, so I'm sorry for not being able to credit. But a lot of the times it's just when they're trying to get into the news situation, they're very irresponsible. We'll say that. I don't want to say they're being intentionally misleading, but they need to be clear so people, they know the context, they know what's happening.
Well, remember BuzzFeed initially, when BuzzFeed came out as a news source, quote unquote, it was always kind of reporting on celebrity news. It was kind of this gossip site.
Right.
And it's 28 ways to make your hair really beautiful or something.
28 Disney character GIFs that showcase how pissed we are at nail polish being removed, some shit like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then all of a sudden they want to delve into news because they see that there's a big, kind of demand for that. So it's let's talk about politics now. So, and then they do it. And then what do? They basically report everything based on gossip. So they basically report the way they do gossip, celebrity news, they do it with politics.
Yeah, because it's trendy.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't need a TMZ style political website. No. We just need objective reporting. So that unless anybody has anything else they wanted to talk about, then I think that we'll go ahead and wrap right here.
I do have one thing really quick, actually. I was just going to ask, did any of you get that email from Twitter?
Oh, I heard about that. I heard a lot of people
I don't think I did.
You did it? I got it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was I was trying to pull it up actually just now, but it was it was basically saying Twitter, it was an email, and actually I think Jimmy Dore just did a show, he also got the email, but basically it was saying we wanted to let you know that you were one of the people that is somehow connected to Russian accounts because you either shared something from a Russian account, or you retweeted, or you liked something, or whatever. And yeah, so they sent emails to people that could have been affected by quote unquote Russian propaganda to as far as a commitment to their transparency. No, this is a real thing. I'm trying to find
pulling up my email now, and I'm checking in the spam filter because that's probably where it went. Where I sent everything from Twitter, but.
Yeah, it was kind of I wanted to bring it up, I know, because it's kind of a big deal. I was like, wait. And so apparently, because I was watching the show with Ron on it, Ron did not get one. He was a little disappointed. That's surprising. But oh, there we go. The title is Information Regarding Russian Influence Campaigns on Twitter is the title of it. I don't want to read the whole thing to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Here, I'll just read the first paragraph just so you can see. So, as part of our recent work to understand Russian-linked activities on Twitter during the 2016 U.S. presidential election, we identified and suspended a number of accounts that were potentially connected to a propaganda effort by a Russian government-linked organization known as the Internet Research Agency. Yeah. And so they sent this, there's a lot more to the email. They sent it out to people who were supposedly affected by it, which is really interesting, actually, that's the case. And I'm trying to figure out what they're considering Russian linked accounts, because I don't know if you know this, but if you go
make that shit up. They make that shit up. They just
so
pull it out of their ass.
Their policy, like, this is legit. Their policy for determining whether or not you are like a Russian linked account. Basically, it's very simple. Literally, you have to have a Russian email address or phone number or credit card or login ID. If you literally logged in to Twitter while you're in Russia, if you declared that you're from Russia on your account. Oh, and if you use a Cyrillic character, so the Russian alphabet or whatever in your name. Literally, it's nothing. So it's literally nothing that actually has to do with propaganda or election meddling. It's just, hey, if you're like Russian, so we don't trust you. I mean, it's straight up there admitting admitting this McCarthyist, this red bait. Yeah, discrimination, definitely. Bullshit.
Yeah,
no,
it's ridiculous. I've heard a lot of people email. I checked. I didn't get it. So apparently they don't know that I am connected to Russia because my dog's name is Vladimir.
Oh,
you missed me. What's up?
What's up? No,
well, but they actually,
I mean, like, even though because I have a lot of conversations with these, or I see a lot of people saying this dumb shit about how, like, oh, if you made this argument, you must be Russian. So like what? Like all of a sudden, every single Russian person is like they're mutually exclusive to like Putin, essentially.
If you disagree, then you're a Russian. I got called a Russian bot the other day.
Yeah, everybody calls that shit.
Yeah, I've been called the Kremlin shill multiple times. I've had people say, well, have you collected your check from the Kremlin this month?
Yeah.
It's like, they're not going to pay a homo to like do propaganda on their behalf. Are you serious?
Well, and it's funny because all this is supposed to be about like protecting you or whatever from, just like propaganda or whatever. But they actually, the thing is, what was it, like back in November or October? Twitter actually admitted to censoring hashtags like before the Senate Intel hearing. They censored a shit ton of the hashtag Podesta emails and hashtag DNC leaks.
Good point.
And they admitted to doing that. And it really had nothing to do with necessarily even the content of the tweet. Literally, if it just had those hashtags, regardless of what was in it, they I mean, I think it was like, what is it? I'm reading it right now, like 25% or something of all the tweets containing those hashtags. I think they censored. And that was for the Podesta emails, was 25%, and I think it was about 48%. It said of the DNC leak hashtags. So, yeah.
That's I'm gonna have to. I didn't know about this. I'm gonna watch Jimmy Dore's video on this now that you told me about that, because I didn't know, and I didn't get an email, so now I kind of feel excluded as well. Like, am I not big enough yet to get an email, or like what the hell?
Honestly, my guess is that the people that maybe I think the good chunk of people that are receiving these emails are the ones with lower followers.
That's me.
So so no offense to you, but so like maybe with the people that don't have because you have a ton of followers, Mike. So you got a ton of followers. You know, Ron. Did he say he got it or no?
He didn't get it.
He did not, but Jimmy did though.
Jimmy, yes, that's weird.
Did you get this, Sahil?
No, I don't think I did. I didn't see anything of getting that.
Mike, I'll forward my email to you so you can see it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious now. I want to read it because this is.
It's all over
really
Twitter,
weird.
Mike. Everybody's been getting African American people have been getting it. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's embarrassing.
I literally just forwarded it to you. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna look at that because that's really weird.
Yeah. So so I was just wondering if anyone else had gotten that. I thought that was yeah.
Well, it's good to know you're a Kremlin shill, Ashley.
I know. Poor Ashley. What the fuck? I feel bad for her though, but I mean, it's a badge of honor though. But shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Hating on one of our establishment exiles. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, me and my comrades.
This is an attack on our podcast. So unless anybody has anything else to say, then if you want to follow myself, Ashley, and Kevin, you can visit estabexiles.com. You could find our links to our Facebooks and Twitters and YouTubes and whatnot, the Twitters. But for Sahil, if you can tell us where to find more of you, and also if you can just explain what your channel is about, because I really feel like you're doing a good service and they benefit by following you. So can you tell us about your YouTube channel and where to find you?
Yeah, so youtube.com/theprogressivevoice should bring you to the channel, but I do like some different things. I like to cover the news, but I also like to talk about different things, like what certain people on the right or the left are saying, and things that will happen and certain issues that come up that I'll talk about. So it'll also be addressing arguments of other people, but a lot of the videos are news videos there. So you can follow me or subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/theprogressivevoice, and follow me on Twitter @progressvoice.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. We will see you later.